Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHRMedia Network.
This is the Edge of Liberty podcast.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, and the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHRMedia Network. It is February 2nd, 2026. I have a great guest tonight that you're going to meet. I can tell you everywhere that you're going to be able to follow her after the fact. She is on Substack, the Leah Files. You can look it right up, as well as on TikTok. And tonight we're going to revisit Benghazi. And you may ask, why now? Well, there's some updated information that she's going to walk us through. She's going to tell you all about herself, how she's way smarter than I am. And her history is way more involved than you or I. And she's going to give us a different insight into Benghazi that we've seen before. And there she is, Leah. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Hello. No, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry I kept you up so late. This is the burden that I bear being at 8 o'clock on Pacific time. And you're not the only person who's been bitten by that bug. So I apologize. I actually had one guest last year fall asleep and I had to call and wake them up. So thank you for enduring. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but a little bit about your history and how you ended up kind of delving into this.
Yeah, so I spent my career in Intel right out of school. I started and then just dived into a few different agencies, CIA and NSA. I worked at DIA for probably the longest, maybe. Got out.
Dived into the Intel community. Yeah, I just dove into the Intel community. Like one does.
Dove in. So got out and now I have a corporate intelligence firm where I do similar things just for the commercial sector. So Benghazi has always been near and dear to my heart. We were talking earlier. I got into the Foreign Service, got called up, and then Benghazi happened, and I chose to not do that, which is a big deal to get in. So it was a year of work to get in. So yeah, just always had a sour spot for Hillary Clinton after that.
Well, you're in good company, I will tell you that. Yeah, so, and you said when we were kind of talking ahead of time that, you know, Hillary Clinton's the reason that kept you from that. And I assume that was kind of a dream that you had. And it's amazing to me that in this day and age, you could go through and count the millions of people whose dreams were ruined by Hillary Clinton in one way, shape, or form. She is, and I'll be the first to say it, she's the equivalent of the word gutter snipe, in my opinion. She's just a terrible human being. And I don't think enough people understand that. Like, for all the things that we've seen Hillary say in public that are just absolutely horrible. I mean, basket of deplorables is one thing, but you go beyond that. And some of the, I mean, she's now calling for pretty much free speech to be completely overtaken by the government online and what you can say and can't say. She's always just been this unbelievably combative person. And it's funny. Like, I can remember go through, I tell the story. We used to have a partner that would broadcast with us years ago who did this in-depth expose on Hillary Clinton, where she spent months, it was at the time, it was the 37 bodies. The number's probably grown, but the 37 bodies of Hillary Clinton, where they've tagged every single person that has met their demise in a very strange manner who have done business with the Clintons. Um, and then, you know, the happy birthday, Mrs. President. Like the list goes on of just how narcissistic she is and who she will step on in order to get herself ahead. And this brings us through so many other places, but to Benghazi, because she was a focus point in Benghazi. I mean, she was Secretary of State. She, and you can correct me because you will know, she's unbelievably most responsible, in my opinion, for the start of the Libya war or the Libya uprising, whatever you want to call it, where they decided to play God with the third world country, because, well, I, because they needed to get equipment through that third world country government that was going to stop them, essentially. For people that don't remember, Libya is insane as Muammar Gaddafi was, and he was. I mean, the guy was loony tune. He was to the point for the first time ever where he was starting to be almost reasonable. Not reasonable as you and I would expect, but for Gaddafi, in contrast, he was a little bit more down to earth. And I don't know if the threats finally got to him, El Dorado Canyon, if he was having, revisions of that. But after he took over all of Central Park with his tents and gave the most bizarre speech at the UN that's ever existed, for the most part, he was kind of keeping to himself in that region, no?
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that going through these emails that I went through, a lot of it kind of came out in, putting the pieces together, the missing pieces that we kind of all thought, but then you see it kind of translated in these emails, and that was one of the most interesting parts for me. And it's why I kept going through 800 and something.
You're a better person than I am. What was the first thing that stuck out to you in those emails that maybe people didn't talk about or people didn't know?
Oh wow. I mean, a lot for me. I think if you want to start with just Libya in general, not just Benghazi, but like what you were talking about, she had the network, Sidney Blumenthal and Tyler Drumheller were her like intel network that she was getting. Over 600 of these emails were from Sidney Blumenthal, and he was banned by Obama from even working at the State Department, yet he was her outside intel source, and she was just forwarding it to her staff, not telling them where she was getting this intel from. And so he came and said that the French wanted Gaddafi gone, and it was because he had, I think, 143 tons of gold worth over $7 billion that he wanted to make into the gold dinar and free these 14 African countries from being on the franc. And that and oil is why France actually got them into the war, not the humanitarian efforts that we so love to hear that we get into wars for. So she knew, and yeah, that gold's never been found. So I did find that part of it really, really interesting and quite disturbing. So
the gold never being found is a very incredible.
Yeah.
That much gold doesn't just disappear. Like, you can't just cart that out in a truck. You need a couple of trucks, and that's crazy. Yeah, Sidney Blumenthal is an interesting character, and by interesting, I mean horrible. But Hillary has had this tendency. We saw this with the Steele dossier. We've seen this where she goes outside and shops things around to people that are going to give her the information that she wants. And then she repackages it that it came from her. And, people may not remember the server issue with Hillary and BleachBit and all of that stuff. One of the stupidest, oh God, the fact that she was allowed to get away with any of that blows my mind. But that feeds into what was going on with Sidney Blumenthal. She had all these outside channels. She was operating essentially classified information on non-classified equipment. And I assume that continued for an extended period of time, probably past what we know.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because I don't know if, I mean, this is just when I went into these emails, I then started reading into the investigations. I wanted to know what's our Congress saying, because I don't ever believe any politicians. So I
Wow.
started putting the story together that way. And it was really interesting because Benghazi is what exposed her server, and I didn't know that. I just didn't know that. So the investigations, they went in to get her emails from the State Department, and they she had like none. It was like she didn't exist at the State Department, and they were like, "Well, where are all your emails?" Well, lo and behold,
Secretary of State.
some of them are sitting on her server. So she carts out these 30,000 that are on WikiLeaks currently in these files, and then bleaches the rest. So if these are as bad as and as telling as what I read, I cannot imagine what the ones that were bleached were. I'm sure they were very classified.
Yeah, and you don't just upload a program. It's not like if I was clearing my computer, you can download a program that'll wipe it all out, and then you can swap your hard drive, and you just her to wipe a server on that level and remove certain things first takes a network of, I mean, clearly one individual could do it, but it's not just I'm going to stroll in and do this one thing and get out. BleachBit, while I'm not knocking the company, is great for smaller kind of situational computers, not a giant server that's operating the State Department.
Yeah.
Which clearly, like you said, the amount of information, emails are coming through there. That was a robust server.
Oh, yeah.
And you know this, I know this. What we got is definitely just the tip of the iceberg,
Right.
and what Hillary was doing. So yeah, so then you learn that a lot of these emails come off the Benghazi. So I mean the Hillary server about Benghazi. That's where it all got exposed. What
Mhm.
was the next thing after you got into that where you're like, "Oh, okay, now this is really getting interesting." Like, and we've talked about this before. Your history in intelligence, and it was the same thing when I was in law enforcement. At the beginning, you're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this stuff is even happening." And then, a year or so in, you're like, "Man, it's just another Tuesday." So when you start going through these emails and stuff starts actually sticking out to you, that's no longer another Tuesday. That's got to be jarring. What was the next step that you got to where you're like, "Oh, this is incredible."
Yeah, I mean, like you said, nothing surprises me after after that long, and seeing the stuff that I did, but just putting the pieces together of how we're gaslit on on the daily. And this really just exposed their playbook for how they do it. I honestly believe if you look at what happened with Benghazi, and I'll talk through the timeline and how we were lied at too, that you look at anything that's happening right now, even with Iran, and you just learn to question it all. And you're not always wrong because yeah, we're gaslit a lot. And I think that's the most jarring thing that I continuously learn, to be honest.
I say it all the time. It's unbelievable when you go from being a conspiracy theorist 2 years ago to all of a sudden being right about a lot of things.
I
Um,
know. I try to stay away from like I did for a long time. I had to tunnel vision. I couldn't talk about any conspiracy theories or anything. But now that I'm out and I see them, I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're not really conspiracy theories. So
well, and that's what we're learning is all the stuff that, I mean, look at COVID. COVID's a great example of
yeah,
modern day gaslighting by the government and how many people bought into it when there were so many people saying none of this makes sense. I don't have to be a doctor to tell you that, like, you can't tell me that if I'm sitting in a restaurant with my mask off eating, I'm fine. But if I stand up 3 feet and put it, then I have to put it back on. Like, that just stuff like that. And I'm not saying that that's the end all be all of the example, but that's just one example where you're just like, come on, like, we know this is all bullshit. I'd rather you just tell us this is bullshit so we can get along with our damn lives.
yeah, and I think that's what yeah, that's what I question. That's why I just yeah. I trust but verify. I think that's the the
Yeah,
sayings.
and given what we've seen out of so many, administrations since Obama and before Obama, and look, go all the way back to Iraq, right?
Oh yeah,
And what we were told we were going in for versus what was actually there. So let's start going through the timeline,
right.
because I could sit here and complain about the government all day long. I do that very well, but
We
I
can do
want
a
to respect your
loaded
but I
podcast.
want to respect your time. Let's start down the timeline.
All right.
Where did you first in the timeline pick this up?
So pretty early on, between this and the investigations, you know, just in the beginning, it was how many times they requested more security. I think it was over 600 requests and cables went through asking for additional security. And you know, Chris Stevens was the man on the ground. He was handpicked by Hillary Clinton, and even he was asking for significant security and keeping an eye on everything on the ground. And then, you know, they're denied at every point in time. And Chris Stevens had also said that he had canceled numerous trips prior. So when I found out, like, he went there on September 10th, it was why. And then you just start unraveling all of that. So the security threats and how many times they requested. And I mean, they attacked the convoy of the UK ambassador in broad daylight. They left, right? We were allegedly, according to everything I had looked at, working with MI6 on this whole arms situation that we can get into later. And then Red Cross was attacked. I think 234 attacks just in that year, 50 in Benghazi alone. And they're like, no, you're good. You don't need more security. Like, no worries. So I found that to be the first step of just alarming. We thought that had happened, but just to see it all kind of laid out was significant to me.
And was it the UK or was it another consulate where they actually blew the wall out and breached it?
It was ours.
It was
ours. Yeah. So then I think it was
September 11th attack.
Two months prior to our attack. 2 months prior, they attacked our with an RPG, enough for 40 men to come through. Like,
yeah, and you brought up Chris Stevens was the one asking for help. And for people that maybe don't get it all straight, the annex where the movie the guys like Chris Pronto and others were stationed at was not acknowledged in being there. So when Chris Stevens is asking for help, he's asking for more state help on the ground, more State Department security personnel on the ground. So that's a non-factor. It plays a huge role in it, but that was not a factor as far as the security assessment that was being done. They didn't exist. So when they say, "Oh no," well,
more than 60% of them were, of the 35 people, 21 were CIA. Mm-hmm. So they weren't there. They didn't exist.
Yeah, but they didn't exist when they were asking for help. So when people say, "Well, they had help there," they didn't. That's not part of what was going on with the state. That's a totally separate entity. All right, let's move forward because I know you have more, and I want to hear it.
Yeah. So they do all these security requests. They get denied, and then Chris Stevens comes in on the 10th, and he meets with the consular general of Turkey that night, 2 hours prior to the attack. Walks him out, and then at 9:40 Benghazi time, the attack starts. And what we've seen that all kind of play out numerous times. Nothing was surprising there, except for the amount of times. I think it was I can't remember who it was, but they had given the order for the military to deploy, and they didn't. They just ignored the orders, and this happened numerous times. The force in Spain did not go. They changed uniforms for like 3 or 4 hours. The force, we've seen this all in Italy, and I just started to wonder why. Like, why would we deny security? Why would we ignore orders? And then you start to put it together that the CIA base was not supposed to be there. They were doing a diplomatic mission to bypass congressional, allegedly, from these. Put that out there. I don't need anyone knocking on my door.
Right.
They were doing this diplomatic mission so that they could bypass Congress. And yeah, that's how it got so messy. And so I think, my opinion is that they didn't deploy these security forces because they were figuring out the risk versus reward of how are we going to get in trouble for being there. And that's what really kind of makes me very upset.
Yeah, so the annex was involved in a lot of things going on out of the annex, but one of the things was the arms movement through the region. And that's something that gets overlooked, but is a major portion of why the American government did not want it. It's so funny. It's like Fast and the Furious in Mexico, like under the Obama administration as well, right? They tried to act like that wasn't going on for the longest time, and that was gun running in itself. And the same thing was going on in Libya. where they're trying to run these guns through to get them into the northern part of Iraq at that time.
Mhm.
So we have this annex that doesn't exist. Chris Stevens is asking for help and not get it, and then the attack happens.
Yeah.
The attack
And
happens. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the attack happens after numerous warnings through the night of the attack, and this is all the stuff that everybody knows. I mean, obviously, Chris Stevens, Sean Smith died later on at the annex. Glenn Woods and Doherty died in the attack there. And is there anything about the attack that you found in there, or is that something that we can kind of keep a bookend on just because people can read the book if they want to see it? And I don't want to
Yeah.
waste your time by reliving that.
Yeah, I mean, I was not there. So that part I would leave to the people that were there. Nothing in these emails surprised me about the attack itself. It's the aftermath and who they blamed, which we can get into.
Yeah. So after the 4 lives are lost, they get evac'd out of Benghazi, and then the shit show starts. The political shit show.
Yeah.
They come out the next day and say, "Oh, this was a protest because people were upset about a video that a guy made, and the guy's on probation, and we're going to put him in jail for making this video." And essentially, he's responsible for the death of the 4 Americans. And then they try to do this. All right, guys, that was it. Thanks for coming.
Numerous times. And what in these emails it showed, like there were emails flying back and forth while the attack was going on. I will say that.
Really?
So while the attack was happening, Sidney Blumenthal, like there were communications that were had, and Sidney Blumenthal brought up Belhaj, I think his name was. So they realized pretty quickly who was probably in on this, you know, from Al Qaeda to Belhaj. And Hillary emailed her daughter under a different name that it was Al Qaeda. And then she got an hour later on the phone with the Egyptian president, I think it was, same thing. And yet they told the American people that it was this video and protests. And then they continue. I think Susan Rice gets on 5 interviews across the span of like a few days. Same thing. We knew so far before that it was not the protest video. And then they removed all mentions of terrorism, all mentions of they were removing things from these speeches. They knew exactly what they were doing to protect the State Department and the annex that was there.
And Hillary Clinton. All of which revolved around her and her doing. And yeah, you brought up the 5, and I can remember years ago when we first started the show, or when we first started the network, we talked about this live and in time, and everybody, I think we were on the air the 12th of September, and all of us were saying there's no way this is in response to a video. Like, I can't even believe they're trying this. This was coordinated. This was funded. These people were armed. They had a battle plan going in. They had a battle plan going out, and they followed them back to the annex and launched secondary and a third attack eventually, with a huge busload of munitions that they were trying to blow up the wall like they had previously done before. All of that did not transpire because a couple people got boo-boo feelings over a video. So
no, and that's what makes me mad when they think we're that stupid.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the emails start flying fast and furious, for lack of a better term. She told Chelsea, God.
Yeah. Under, I think it was Diane Rose and something. That's the fake name that she used.
I'm not a smart person, but if I was, say, Secretary of State, and I have classified information about an attack that just cost 4 people their lives that are Americans, a diplomat nonetheless, an ambassador, and exposed a base that we never admitted that we had, I don't know if I'd be emailing my kid and be like, "Oh, by the way, we know who did this." Like, it is. I'm so glad that certain people are naive to what can be saved and recovered, because it really shows us like how dumb they actually are, and like I said, narcissistic. Like, oh, nothing's ever going to happen to me.
Right.
So what's the next big point in this timeline where you're looking at these emails and something really jumped out at you that maybe the public hadn't heard?
Well, I don't know if I said this, but, and I don't know how many people that listen know this, but I didn't. 17 Fab, who was protecting us 2 days prior to the attack, said, "Hey, we're not protecting you anymore on transportation. Like when you leave, we're not protecting you anymore." They were having inward fighting. And then the day before, they said, "We're not protecting you, period." And the people, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the people that came and actually protected them and ended up saving them were Gaddafi's old crew.
Yeah, and I think it was a mixed bag of people, but I think it was a group of people that in the Gaddafi part might be true because somebody probably said, "Hey, there's going to be hellfire raining down on this country if we do not make this right." Like, not even doing it for the humanitarian purposes, but more to save our ass. Which, if there was an actual leader in government, that would have happened, but it did
Right.
not in this regard. And 17 Feb, and like I said, you read the book, you watch the movie. I interviewed Chris. Even when they were doing what they were hired to do, they were a complete shit show, anyways. They portray them not in the movie, but in all the documentation, portray them as like an active, organized fighting force with a hierarchy that we contracted for our protection, and it was just a group of tribalists, strongmen who were going to whoever the higher bidder was, and it happened to be Americans, and obviously knew this attack was coming because the only people from what I understand that we knew were showing up to do the 17 Feb were the people that actually like had friends there. Like they wanted to get paid. They didn't care about the tribalist part. They just wanted the money for showing up and their friends were doing it and they were hoping to get like that's it. They weren't actively there. There was 20 of them at the gate. Some of them didn't even have guns.
Yeah.
So yeah, 17 Feb was not
Yeah.
Light security does better than 17 Feb. So we get the whole BS the next day. Susan Rice goes out and sends it. And I assume that day, you said there's stuff being deleted. I assume that day emails are flying around that are now exposed into like, what are we doing?
Yeah. So the next day, like September 12th, Blumenthal sends Hillary an email and it mentions that Belhaj guy. Sorry, my computer screen keeps going here. Mentions that Belhaj, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but he's important because we armed him. He was the he was with the Libyan Islamic fighting group. We armed him. And so the fact that she knew that he was mentioned, we had given him to Gaddafi, allegedly had given him to Gaddafi to torture, and then he got out. And that whole operation rendition of where we gave Gaddafi all our spies to torture, he gets out, takes over, gets all the classified material to prove that. We arm him, and now it could be that he's attacking us. So I also think there was a lot of saving the face. They didn't want that whole operation to be known, perhaps. There's a lot of reasons why they could have been lying, but they didn't even like try to fake it or tell us anything but a video. But that happens. The emails are flying back and forth, and then Hillary Clinton goes to the families when the bodies are come back to, I think it was Andrews. She goes to the mothers, and they've come out and said this in interviews and said, we're going to arrest the guy that did this, like the guy that did the video. And they did. They arrested him. He was in jail for a year, prison for a year based on the probation. But she told them 4 days later that she was going to do that. And that just to me is as a mother disgusting, because like you just lied to them and you knew it wasn't him and it was a terrorist attack. And so whenever they're lying about things like this, I just dig further into why could they be doing this? Why are they lying about it? And that's when some of the other stuff with the annex and the arms through Turkey to Syria kind of came up.
Sorry, I said Iraq earlier. You're right. It's Syria. And that's the funny part, because even though we were in the middle of we had just recently destabilized and destroyed the Libyan government, we were also arming the Syrian rebels against Assad. So we really had a whole bunch of guerrilla warfare that we were funding at that time going on.
It was actually ISIS. Turns out we were actually arming ISIS because that's what we like to do. We like to arm the people that then end up becoming our enemies. So we're kind of like for free on that.
And this is why I really wanted to talk about this, because the Benghazi thread on the sweater that is the Obama administration, it just keeps going.
Mhm.
Like, we have you back another time. We'll talk about Syria and just what a disaster that was.
Mhm.
Um, so we're to the point where Hillary meets the parents of the fallen. She
Mhm.
lies to their face,
Mhm.
as only Hillary Clinton can do and sleep at night. Um, and they this is to the point, if I recall, where they're starting to scramble because narratives are starting to fall even in this short amount of time. So as you're peeling through the timeline of these emails, is there any like, "Hey guys, we're in trouble" type email that gets sent out?
Oh,
Uh,
no. No, no, no. It is all there behind the scenes, and I did go through in her other emails. I haven't gone all the way through them, but her DNC emails from her and the DNC kind of ruining Bernie Sanders election. But they do tell her in there, you got to say things to the public and then say things behind closed doors. You have to do one thing and say another. And that is the guidance. And you see it play out in here and in so many places. But she was telling us one thing. Meanwhile, all of the emails going back and forth, which there are hundreds, were about them knowing that this was a terrorist attack. And they were never like, oh no. I don't think they would actually write that. But yeah, just they just dug their hole further and they were hoping that no one would ever notice, that they could just kind of make it go away. So it went on until, to be honest, it wasn't in the emails when I don't even remember because it was even 17 days past. Obama was still talking about it being a video. So it was a while before they finally came out and said anything. But at no point in the emails did they ever say it was about a video. At every point, it was about a terrorist attack.
and you were working in government at the time. Not gonna ask you anything that's gonna get you in trouble, but, um, at that time, did you have the feeling even then? Because I know obviously all that stuff is compartmentalized and you only know what you know and you're only allowed to know certain things, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But even back then, working in the government intelligence, were you guys all like, yeah, this is bad." Like, the
Yeah. The thing is, when you work in that world, you even see things that come out that are classified. You'll see things come out and you're like, I can't say that's true, right? You can't even have conversations about it. So you just don't want to touch it. So you actually don't, I didn't ever talk about work or anything going on. Because I just never wanted to cross into that threshold or get into a conversation with somebody that like pissed me off enough where I was like, you're so stupid. So I just kept my mouth shut. So no, we actually didn't talk about it, but I had just finished my stint at the CIA at that time, and I had just gotten into the Foreign Service. So I 100% was like, they are so lying. They're so stupid. But these are internal thoughts that just
Right.
stay in your head until go on a podcast a
Yeah.
few years later.
And I applaud you because I would not have been able to be I'm the guy that would have been like, "Hey, we all know we're getting fucked, right?
You
Like,
see
this
this,
is all
right?
bad. We all know this is like so
So
ridiculous."
I didn't have social media. I only have this TikTok channel. I never had social media because again, I just
So,
pop off one time and I'm in trouble.
at what point does, the next big flag kinda come up in the emails? I know it's probably a couple months down the line. It's when the congressional inquiry probably starts, where all of a sudden stuff starts really kicking up as to, like, how upside down they really were in all of this.
Well, the emails kind of were just feeding intelligence to her, and they continued after that. And the other thing before we go into the investigations, Blumenthal and Drumheller, and then there was one more guy who was an ex-DIA guy. They owned Osprey Global Solutions, which is a security firm, and they were profiting from everything happening in Libya that they were influencing. And the fact that that was never addressed, honestly, so they're feeding intel. Clinton is feeding it to her staff, not telling her where she's getting it from. We're making policies and political decisions based on this. And then they're ending up profiting on these security contracts and medical contracts from the downfall of what we did. I found that circle to be incredibly amazing that was on these emails.
Well,
Uh,
and we've seen that so much in government. You go back to Dick Cheney in Iraq and the amount of money he made off of the construction company. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But Halliburton, thank you very much. But as we sit here and we, 2026, there's been so many examples of, hey, I always bring up like the green energy, right? When we were told that green energy is we have to do this no matter what. This is the thing, and everyone's like, well, the technology isn't there like 100% yet. We need to be investing this much, and all of a sudden we're dumping billions, and then you find out a lot of these companies were being owned by friends of friends of friends who were in the government. So it's not shocking, but it's upsetting. Less, and the fact that nothing has ever happened to Sidney Blumenthal.
Oh, no, and he wasn't even supposed to be working for the State Department. He was banned by Obama. But yeah, so they get into the investigations, and there were 10 investigations done costing $8 million to us taxpayers. This is what I love. 250, more than 250 witnesses interviewed. And this is from other reports that I've read, but they polygraphed, allegedly, everyone who's I have to say this a million times. They polygraphed everybody.
I can watch this and count how many times allegedly was said.
It's a CYA for me. They polygraphed all the agents that were there monthly to make sure they weren't talking to Congress or the media. And as somebody who's been through these polygraphs, they're hell. And I had never even gotten like a speeding ticket, and I was bawling in mine. So that is incredibly weird and intimidating like behavior. And that shows that they were just trying to cover up what they were doing there. And then for Congress to come out and be like, no, I see no wrongdoing. Cool. After $8 million, that really pissed me off.
Well, and so you go back, and I want to clarify, the people that were on the ground and working for the CIA at the time, all of them were polygraphed to make sure that they were not speaking to Congress. It wasn't like they were just polygraphed at the entrance exams, or they were polygraphed, for a regular upkeep type thing. No. They were being polygraphed and targeted specifically so they were not talking to Congress, which I am almost positive is all sorts of negligent operations, and probably goes against some sort of civil rights and constitutional bounds. But I'm not a lawyer. What the hell do I know, right?
That's why it's allegedly.
It's all allegedly. So we get into this $8 million investigation, and the emails are still pretty timid at this point, or are they starting to because, for everyone to remember, and I almost pulled the clip, but I couldn't stand her shrieking and yelling, "What difference does it make?" Which Hillary in front of Congress, in front of the Senate, I believe at that point. But the reality of the situation is they still were coming out and kind of just downplaying the whole damn incident during the investigations. And you had many members of Congress who were, for one reason or another, not interested in really digging further.
Yeah. And the emails had died down. I think at that point they knew. Once you have an investigation, you realize she probably realized pretty quickly what was going to happen. She's not stupid. So I think that I'll give her that. I'll give her that bone. So I think that they had stopped at that point. But yeah, it does seem like they knew that they didn't know anything. I mean, if you were polygraphing your people to make sure they weren't talking, if you had all of these emails prior, I don't think they knew they could get away with it, and they did. But there's never accountability. So all of that, all of what happened, all of those emails, we have those emails. We have why we went to Libya, the reasons, all of this network, the timeline, the denied requests, and they still just, everyone got off. So yeah, I find when I go down these rabbit holes, it's more like just pulling the thread for, I want to fill in the holes of things that we want to know, knowing damn well there will never be accountability. So that's gone.
I want to kind of tag onto your expertise as an analyst, as just doing all of these. You can put lines to dots really well, I assume. That's what you do, right? As you read through these 800 plus emails, which again, you're a better person than I am. Do you start realizing how quickly it would have and easily it would have been to start prosecuting people? And are you, I'm not shocked. I don't want to say shocked, but um is there anyone maybe that something did shock, like I brought up Sidney Blumenthal, but as you're reading through all these, you're like, how did we get here? Like, how did nothing come out of this?
Oh, yeah. And the plausible deniability, of these emails, they were like, I don't believe that. Yet you were using him as an intel source this whole time. So I think that was why they did these back channel intel, because then it could be, I don't know him. But yeah, not only could it could have been prevented, it could have been stopped early. At every gate, we chose the wrong path to go down. And then when we went to, get justice, it's all there. It's clear for anybody to see, and nothing happened. Just look at the Epstein files.
Well, and remember, there was the Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch meeting. At one point, Eric Holder comes into play after all of this, and we saw Eric Holder wouldn't even hold himself in contempt or prosecute himself in contempt. And we go through in conservative shows like this, we have a tendency to talk about government fucking up on a regular basis. That's just kind of right. The Obama administration, which so many people say, oh, but they never had a controversy. There was never a really big thing. And Democrats say that all the time. Well, where did you see stuff like this under Obama? And it's like, well, first of all, Benghazi. I mean, that's easy. Then there's Fast and the Furious. We talk about that. He drone struck an American citizen, which, as much as a piece of shit as he was, he still was an American citizen that had a right to due process. Like, there was a lot of things under Obama. And to close that circle in with Hillary, it got even, it almost seemed like she was just like, well, hold my wine, because I'm going to actually make this even worse. You look back at Benghazi, we know what we know. There's you said his name 3 times and now I can't even think about it. Barrage. Belhaj, thank you. We look at running the guns to ISIS, which is just even more incredible, that so much of this, like, it blows your mind when you look at one thing and then you start to pull back and you're like, well, that also encompassed this. Like, oh, our whole ISIS problem was also part of our Benghazi failure and our Libya failure. And not only that, but there was also the whole thing about Assad and the Syrian rebels where we were like trying to kill it. Like, it just keeps going.
Just unravels.
Now that you're out and you're seeing all of this, as an American citizen and not a member of the government, how do you feel about your time in service? Because that's going to be a tough kind of thing to square. Because you did good work, and we know you did good work. Like, I believe that
you don't know. I could have been. You never know.
I assume too much. Good point.
I'm very innocent looking.
Yes, of course.
I'm honored to have. I honestly feel like, and I'll tell this to anybody, while I do not like the higher ups, I think they're all in it for themselves. The people that actually work at these agencies, myself, my coworkers, they wanted to do good, right? Like, everyone goes in every day doing good. There were people who knew about Osama bin Laden or 9/11 way before, right? They went in and they did good and they tried to fight the good fight, and it breaks at the top. And that's, I guess, I was honored. I would never, I never regret my time there. Everything I learned, I don't sleep well at night, but the people who work at these agencies and for these agencies, and I feel the same about our military. I feel the same about many of us normal people. I do feel like they do fight the good fight for us. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do. So
well, and you brought up OBL. Do you have a few more minutes? We can wrap it out to the top of the hour, and then I'll let you go to bed.
Yeah.
You brought up OBL, and a lot of people don't realize is we had an opportunity to take out OBL in Africa. I want to say it wasn't Kenya, it was one of the other countries, but we had a guy, and I watched a whole series on him recently. Who he was a CIA member, then he became a contractor, and he did a lot of the wet work, so to speak. And he was really unbelievable about it. And he was 10 feet from bin Laden at one point, waiting for the phone call that Clinton would not approve. And they knew then what he was capable of. Is that true?
Probably. 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 I think that there were multiple. I think I had talked to you. I was at NSA at the time when we caught him, and I worked for the group that did. I wasn't working on it at the time, but I do think that we had numerous opportunities to catch him. I think with all of our intel, I just think it was on purpose. It was, that's all I'm going to say.
It brings up the
or incompetence, one of the two.
No, either you're really dumb or you have a complete motive to do one thing or another. And like I said, it brings up the whole Saudi question and Saudi problem that we get at that point, which at that time we were trying to win over still. So or maintain our relationship is probably a better way to put it. So we flash forward now we know everything about Libya. I mean, obviously not everything. We know a lot more about what happened. And all eyes are currently on Iran. Can you draw some comparisons? First and foremost, I know that your primary job now is you advise people essentially going to foreign countries like, hey, you should open this business, you shouldn't open this business, or that's kind of what you do now, right? With all of your expertise.
Well, yeah, if they want to go into a country for market, or if they're doing logistics or looking into a vendor, we'll do more of a deep dive into that vendor, not just a typical background check. Look at sanctions. Is that country is at risk? But we also look at like CEOs and boards to do that deeper, watch the CEOs. How do they talk? Because background checks are one thing, but actually watching a human and interviewing them, it's totally different ball game to find out who you're really investing in. And 80% of businesses and mergers and acquisitions fail because they fail to assess the CEO and culture properly. So we do all of those. And I have ex agency people that contract for me as well.
So if I wanted you to look into, say I wanted to open a feminist t-shirt wear in Iran, would you advise me right now if that's
I'd probably advise against it at any point.
Okay. So let's talk about Iran, because let's draw some comparisons, and let's also point out what's different, and because the politics, as much as Gaddafi was a screwball, the biggest difference is Iran's reach goes much further than Gaddafi's did at the time. So there's a lot of different things you have to take into account between the two countries. Yeah, they're in the same region. Yeah, there's some similarities. You had a wingnut at the top in Libya, you have a wingnut in the top in Iran. But where are they different?
Yeah, I think they differ in a lot of areas. I think they differ more than they're alike, but I think the parallels aren't in how similar they are. If you look at the country versus the country, the parallels are how we're approaching it and how we approached Libya and the decision points and the politics around it. That's where I see the similarities, less in the countries themselves, because I mean, Gaddafi was running one of the best, not third world, but I guess one of the best third world countries in Africa at the time. When he left, when he was killed, it got so much worse for the people. And in Iran right now, I think they've been trying to do this for a very long time. They have nukes; they're a threat to a lot of people. But how we're approaching it is what concerns me. And Obama will say that Libya was his greatest failure. And if you look at it, it's because we didn't have a day after plan. We kind of just let it go. And if we do the same with Iran, that's where it gets really scary, especially with a country with potential nukes. So I think how we're approaching it, and it's France kind of got us into Libya, is Israel kind of enticing us into Iran, and what are the true motives? And that's kind of my concern when I look at it, is how are we really approaching it? And what are we going to do after? And I do think we're taking lessons learned from, Libya and Iraq. I'm hoping that Trump is actually doing that, and I do have faith that he's doing that, and which is why it's taking us so long to go in. Because that day after, 30 day, 60 day, it's not just get rid of the regime and then what? You have MEK, who is, I was just looking into like more today, the group that, they have 262 of our politicians fighting for them. They pay people to speak for them, and they're just another terrorist organization. We would just fund them to go in and take over, and the Iranian people don't want them either. So I don't know. There's a lot of parallels with right now with how we're approaching it. I'm just hoping that when it gets executed, it's not the same. Otherwise, I think we're going to end up in the same position.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a day after plan for Libya because they didn't want to talk about. They wanted Libya to go away, man. If they could have put a shell over Libya and just walked away and locked the door, they would have. I agree with you in Iran. And I do, like I said, I totally understand Israel's motive and all this, because if I was Israel, I'd want them gone too, right? I mean, they have been the bane of your existence since the 70s, 60s, or the 70s, when the Shah fell. And all of that aside, because everyone's like, oh, if you must just be super pro-Israel, da da da. And I'm like, well, no, I just look at this rationally, right? Rationally,
it makes sense, and I'm not pro-Israel at all, so I think it makes sense.
No, and I just mean, like, you don't have to be pro or for, but if you start looking at the rational decision, first of all, the Middle East is going to be the Middle East until the end of time. It's never going to change per se. There's always going to be at least one hot spot in the Middle East, any given. And look at Yemen. We don't talk a lot in this country about what's going on in Yemen, but Yemen is it's Libya all by itself without Hillary helping. They're doing that all by themselves. But you look at Iran and the amount of funding that first of all, oil to China, Russia, North Korea, arms going to Russia, and China, who, Russia, we all know, is the paper tiger. They outside of the nukes, Russia is not a threat to anybody. They can't even roll over Ukraine. China, I think, is probably half as good as they say they are, because it's China, and you get exactly what they want you to get out of China as far as information goes.
I mean, I've run some war games. I did run some war games. I'll do that from time to time when asked. And I will say that China is a much bigger threat than I think we give them credit for.
I think their aspirations are, and I'll defer to you. Obviously, you know much better than I am. I just go off for what's publicly available. So, but there's a lot of people who say, yeah, no, as good as China is, they're also not as good as China says they are. And you have to keep that in mind, but they have numbers, which is a scary game.
Yeah, we could never put boots on the ground there. We'd get destroyed. Right. It's a different kind of fight,
and the whole point of Venezuela was to keep China and Russia out of South America. That was one of the big things. It's why we're dealing with Greenland right now. People don't realize that is the China threat is huge. So when we're looking at Iran and you take those two into consideration, those are two pretty big boxes right off because all the oil that a lot of the oil, I want to say all, but a lot of the oil both of those countries get come from Iran one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, they started the shadow fleet. They started the whole shadow fleet in 2010 when they got the sanctions put on them. So all the Venezuela oil rigs that we were blowing up, it started with Iran. So if they stop, if we can't give China fuel, they can't really fuel a war. So
right, because logistics wins wars. Fuel runs logistics, and if you don't have those two, you don't have a war.
And I think a lot of people miss that when they say we just want the oil, and I'm like, well, you don't understand it. Taking it away from them is our warfare. So
yeah, because at the time, I think Venezuela was 7% of China's total oil, which is a lot when you're a nation. 7% is a huge bump, and Iran, going back to Iran, is 24% the last time I looked of China's oil. If you can eliminate 31% of China's oil, you've just set, I mean, you're not taking them off the table, but you've set them back
Oh yeah.
a couple of decades. I mean, legitimately a couple of decades. They have a fuel crisis in their country as it is. They don't make it at home, so they need to get it from elsewhere.
Mhm.
So, and that forces China into a different place now, into a geopolitical world outside of their country, because now they might actually start playing nice with people. Or you could actually start to see the country maybe change, because that economy would hit hard if they lose all that oil.
Oh yeah.
A lot of their economy is military based in development and production and membership of the military. And if you can't feed, house, and pay for all of that, you're going to have some turmoil at home, and they have a lot of people to keep in line. So they they would have to seriously consider, and I know China's already on the ground in Iran. Everybody knows that. Russia, I think they got their nuclear scientists out this past week, is when Putin came out and said, well, if something happens, we're going to get our scientists out. That said to me, our scientists have been home for a week because we know something's coming in the next couple days. If you were advising President Trump right now, would you say hit Iran or not?
Oh, I've thought about this probably far too much. Yeah, I think if we do it, it has to be surgical. Like, otherwise we're not going to do it right. How can you make sure you remove the regime? You can't just blow up buildings. That's just not how it's going to work for them. So I do think we need to go in. It just can't just be like the carpet bombing them. It needs to be a surgical operation. And I think if we were to show the force and Israel went in and did it, that would be the best, I think, of both worlds.
Yeah, because Israel doesn't, I mean, as capable as the Israeli military is, and they are, they lack certain things that we have, especially bunker busting ability and bombs. I mean, that's the biggest thing they need us for. And that's actually great for us, because if we can say, we'll provide that if you provide the rest. In other countries, and I want your expertise on this, I've heard obviously UAE has a vested interest going on in the whole Middle East right now. They're everywhere in the Middle East right now. Nobody's talking about how much the UAE is in a lot of other countries. But you also have the Saudis.
Even on 15% of TikTok now. So
yeah, the UAE, it's funny because people don't realize there's a proxy war going on right now in Yemen between the Saudis and the UAE. A massive proxy war going on. And now both of them are eyeballing Iran and trying to get in Iran. So I think the other thing that does, if you put Israel on the ground in there, and I know everyone's going to say, oh, Israel did this because it's Israel and blah, 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 blah. But I'm just talking from our benefit. Put Israel on the ground and say, hey, look, you guys have already been in here for a couple of years anyhow. You have Mossad agents everywhere, and we all know it. Why don't you massage this, make it work right? They'll probably have the crown prince come back to try to settle things down and get a new government going. But what that also does is it keeps the UAE and the Saudi Arabia at bay, because they don't want to cross that line and piss us off. Am I close?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I think we have the plan. Now we just need to tweet Trump and hey, we've solved your problems.
Well, I'll call him tomorrow and see if he'll take my call on this, because that wouldn't be weird.
No, but yeah, you're spot on. I think you're right. And we have to make sure that everyone kind of plays nice, and there has to be a captain. There has to be a captain. Otherwise Iran will just get overrun by and then there might be a war within it. It just, yeah, it wouldn't be good for the people of Iran,
which is supposed to be the goal
that we're going in there for.
And I know we look at this from a very black and white, what's kind of best for us, but I do honestly wholeheartedly feel for the people of Iran, because you look at what that is, imperfect as it was, and I know we put the Shah in as well. Like I know the whole history behind it, but if you look at Iran in 1975 compared to Iran today, and I know people that grew up in Iran that fled when the Shah fell.
My father-in-law grew up in
kidding.
Iran.
Yeah. So
his dad worked for Raytheon.
Yeah, everybody worked for Raytheon. I swear, I meet more people that work for Raytheon. So it is in their interest as well to try to, and if you can bring back a stable Iran in a few years, and you can bring them back to maybe what they were in the 70s. Yeah, we talk about the leadership, whatever, but that stability in the region and who they were as a country prior to the Shah falling, you do change the entire politics of the Middle East.
Yeah.
And for the betterment of the world, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've said this, I don't think we should be involved. I think we should have let them, maybe helped in some capacity, obviously, or helped facilitate it. But when Trump said we're coming, take your institutions, we do have, in my opinion, we need to show up for them. So I think now we're just too far in it. So hopefully, I do think it's going to happen. I know you said maybe today. I do think it's going to happen soon, very soon.
Yeah, very soon.
What it looks like, I don't know. That's the one thing about Trump. The minute he says I'm not going to do something, we're in talks. I'm like, he's going to do something.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and do something. Yeah. And the good part about him, I will say, he lets the military do military things. And he lets them pick the level that they need to get to in order to be successful. We saw that in Venezuela specifically, of like, hey, this is my objective. You guys do what you got to do. And which I imagine for the military is unbelievable, because they're finally like, great, now we get to actually be a military, not a geopolitical arm of the government. We can just go.
I'm sure they're very happy.
Will you come back after we bomb Iran and talk about it?
Yeah, no, I will come talk to you about anything.
What are you starting to dig into now that people can go to your Substack, the Leah Files, and TikTok and start learning about? What's keeping you up at night?
Oh, I mean, right now I'm trying to navigate this new ownership, because I talk about very controversial topics and I come at it from a point of both sides. But I still get banned or flagged. So I'm trying to navigate that. But I would like to get into the Epstein files, but not the Epstein files like bad stuff we're seeing, the Epstein files of like who's connected to who and how did the money flow. And Clintons are about to testify. They said today they were going to. So yeah, I just want to understand how that's all playing out, and who they're hiding.
Yeah.
So
and why was Reid Hoffman so prominently spoken about numerous times? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think that the connections there are just so fascinating to me. I've always thought it was an intel op. You can't blackmail people by girls. I've always thought it was deeper. So kind of getting into that. But I also talk about any current events that are going on. So if anybody has other things, I do a lot of follow the money too. So
outstanding. Well, we'll have to pick the next subject and schedule time for you to come back.
Yeah.
I know I kept you out late. Everyone, please go to TikTok, look up the Leah Files and her Substack as well, please. It's a great read, and I am very thankful for you being here, and I can't wait to have you back. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
We're going to get you on other social media soon so we can actually
All right.
All right.
Dipping my toes in.
A little bit at a time. I appreciate you doing it with us tonight, and I hope you have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Folks, that's going to be it for me on the Edge of Liberty tonight. A different show, a show that, like I said, is near and dear to me because of Chris Peranto made such an impression with the time that I spent with him. So I know this wasn't, let's hit all the regular topics that we usually hit, but this is something I felt like it was very important, and just to get her insight, to be able to pick the brain of somebody who did 20 years in our intel community, I think is massively important and a gift. Honestly, I'm very thankful for her. So I'll be back Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific. Business as usual. We'll start getting into some usual topics, but it's not just me. Hey, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific. On the East Coast, you have Mission Ready Men with Big E, and he's there Tuesday and Thursday morning. Tuesday, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Pacific. 11 p.m. on the East Coast, you have BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The Bulbous One will return tomorrow night, and then Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have the Reaver of Common Sense with my buddy Jersey Joe. And then every once in a while, the Lost Wanderer makes an appearance on a Sunday on our YouTube, and we hope to see him again soon. Please check us out, SHRMedia.com. Thank you to KLRN for simulcasting this broadcast. I greatly appreciate it. Hey, look, I didn't play the commercial night, but we have the 250th Reasons to read source documents shirt that's up. Go to shrmedia.com. Under shows, you'll see the shop button. You can grab one for yourself or any of the other great shirts rather that we have there. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you Wednesday night. Have a great evening.